Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is a deep dive into Grand Teton National Park. And when you look at those mountains, they're just famously sharp, jagged, aggressively vertical. They look incredibly young. That appearance is the perfect hook, really, but it immediately throws up one of the biggest, well, contradictions in North American geology.
That paradox is absolutely the core of the Teton story.
Sure.
You look at those peaks, and yeah, you think yesterday, especially if you compare them to say, the softer, older Appalachians.
Hmm.
But while the Teton Range looks young, the actual rock it's built on, that's some of the oldest continental foundation we have. We're talking 2.5 to 2.8 billion years old. Yet the mountain's dramatic, steep profile is, geologically speaking, pretty recent. It's the result of a massive uplift that only started about 10 million years ago.
So an ancient heart, but this dramatic exterior is, yeah, a newcomer. How does that kind of rapid formation even happen?
It happens pretty violently through faulting. The Teton Range is really the classic example of a fault block mountain range. The whole structure is defined by the Teton Fault. It's active, running right along the eastern base. You've got the peaks going up and the flat valley next to them. That's Jackson Hole dropping down. It's a dynamic thing,
Hmm.
an active process where deep time and, well, modern geology are right there on display together.
Right. It's not just a gradual slope, it's this really sudden displacement. How huge is the scale of that drop? Because looking up from the valley floor, the peaks feel almost impossibly steep.
Yeah, it's hard to really grasp the magnitude until you use a marker rock.
Uh,
Geologists, they use the Cambrian Flathead sandstone. It's a layer that caps the Teton Peaks today. Now, if you trace that exact rock layer down into Jackson Hole, just on the east side of the fault, it's buried about 30,000 feet deep, right into the valley floor.
30,000 feet, that's nearly 6 miles of vertical separation.
Yeah.
Wow. That really shows the sheer, relentless power of that fault line.
It totally illustrates the immense forces involved. And underneath all that tectonic drama are those core rocks we mentioned earlier. Those are the Precambrian metamorphic gneiss and schist. If you really want to know what the foundational continental crust looks like, well, that's pretty much it. Literally the earliest building blocks in North America. They've gone through incredible heat and pressure.
And you can actually see signs that the geological drama didn't just stop there, right? There are intrusions.
Oh, definitely. About 1.3 billion years ago, immense heat drove magma intrusions up into that core rock. They solidified into these black diabase dikes. You can actually see these distinct dark veins cutting through the lighter rock on Mount Moran. It's like a clear, stark line drawn right in the geological timeline. But the final sculpting, the creation of the Tetons we recognize today, that wasn't tectonic. It was icy.
Ah, the ice architects. Okay, so now we're shifting from billions of years down to the last couple of million years. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
During the Pleistocene epoch, particularly what we call the Bull Lake and Plandale glacial periods, massive alpine glaciers came down. They were like powerful bulldozers. They took those initial V-shaped river valleys and just carved them out into the deep U-shaped troughs that really define the mountain's look now. And they also gouged out the depressions that eventually filled up to become the park's iconic deep blue lakes, Jenny Lake, Phelps Lake, Jackson Lake.
It's pretty amazing that we can still see the evidence of those sculptures today, even if, well, things are changing rapidly now.
We absolutely can. Small glaciers like Teton Glacier and Falling Ice Glacier are still there, still technically active, but they are retreating fast, really fast. They're serving as this tangible, almost painful record of modern climate change happening right now, right there in this landscape.
We've mostly focused on these huge forces spanning millions or billions of years, but your sources also mentioned something pretty dramatic that happened in like a single afternoon, the Gros Ventre slide. What exactly was that, and why is it so important to the Teton story?
Yeah, the Gros Ventre slide. It happened just outside the current park boundary back in 1925.
Mm.
It was this catastrophic reminder that this landscape is constantly unstable. So on June 23rd, heavy moisture saturated a weak rock layer up on Sheep Mountain.
Mhm.
And then suddenly an estimated 50 million cubic yards of earth and rock just slid down, completely dammed the Gros Ventre River.
Whoa, which
Yeah.
created this huge natural lake, right? Lake Gros Ventre. But the immediate sudden danger wasn't actually over yet.
No, it definitely was not. 2 years later, heavy snowmelt caused that natural dam to partially fail. That was May 18, 1927. The flood that resulted was just devastating. It completely wiped out the downstream town of Kelly, Wyoming, and sadly resulted in at least 6 deaths. It just shows that while the peaks are stunningly beautiful, the very same processes of erosion and instability that build the landscape can, in an instant, deliver total disaster. It's incredible how long the Earth took to shape this region. Now, switching gears a bit, if we look at the human history, we know people entered this dynamic, sometimes violent landscape surprisingly early on.
Yeah, the archaeological record suggests people first ventured into the valley at least 11,000 years ago, right as the glaciers started to recede. It was clearly a critical area, a seasonal home, and a vital hunting ground for several tribes, including the Shoshone, Bannock, Crow, and Nez Perce.
But the path to actually conserving this place, well, it was marked by some pretty intense conflict, mostly driven by different views on how the land should be used. When the initial park was established back in 1929, it only protected the high, rocky peaks. It basically left the flat, commercially valuable valley floor Jackson Hole completely exposed.
And that's where John D. Rockefeller Jr. enters the picture. He became the architect of the park's expansion, but he had to use a rather, well, unconventional and kind of secret method to do it.
He really did. Starting in 1927, he used this entity called the Snake River Land Company as a secret front. His goal was to quietly acquire over 35,000 acres of that valley floor. He kept his involvement totally hidden because he knew, absolutely knew, local ranchers and developers would fiercely oppose any kind of federal land grab.
Right, and that secrecy caused a huge uproar when his actions finally came to light. Local ranchers felt completely betrayed, right? It led to this political stalemate that just dragged on for years. So the tension was sort of baked into the preservation plan from the very beginning.
Yeah, it took executive action in the end to break that logjam. In 1943, President Franklin Roosevelt stepped in and declared Rockefeller's acquired land as the Jackson Hole National Monument. Congress later kind of forced the issue, consolidating the monument and the original park into the expanded Grant Teton National Park we know today in 1950. It was basically conservation achieved by stealth and sheer political will.
And that land today is so essential because the park isn't really isolated, is it? It's a key part of the much larger Greater Yellowstone ecosystem, the GYE.
It is, absolutely. And that scale is crucial for managing the wildlife. The GYE is one of the largest, nearly intact, temperate ecosystems left on Earth. Its health really demands a collaborative cross-boundary approach, especially for migratory species like, well, the continent's largest free-roaming wild bison and elk herds. They move across huge areas.
And of course, it's home to one of the few remaining grizzly bear populations in the lower 48 states. That success, though, inevitably means close encounters and, human-wildlife conflicts.
That's the daily reality of coexistence there. The science-based rules are strict. Keep 100 yards distance from bears and wolves, 25 yards from everything else. Rangers are constantly managing traffic just to keep people safe and allow wildlife to move, hence the famous roadside bear jams.
But the community response to things like vehicle collisions is pretty fascinating. The sources mention proactive projects like wildlife crossings and special fencing, funded partly by voter-approved taxes. That seems like a serious regional commitment to protecting those migration corridors.
It really is a collective effort. Yeah. And if you want, like a bellwether species for the ecosystem's overall health, you should look to the water. Specifically, the native Snake River fine-spotted cutthroat trout. They are incredibly sensitive to change, and honestly, they're struggling. They face competition from non-native trout, some habitat degradation, and critically warmer streams because of the changing climate.
So the fight to keep them healthy, things like restoring fish passages, doing video counts of spawning populations, it's almost like a microcosm of all the pressures facing the entire Teton ecosystem, isn't it?
It really is. Their survival reflects the health of the whole system.
Okay, let's shift gears now to more of an explorer's guide. For you, the listener, maybe planning a visit, what are the absolute essential stops for taking in those incredible views?
Right. For drivers, you definitely have to take the main Teton Park Road and also the Jenny Lake Scenic Drive. That one gives you incredible close-up access. And oh, don't miss the winding Signal Mountain Summit Road. It's a bit of a climb, but the payoff is this full panoramic view of the whole 40-mile Teton Range and the vastness of Jackson Hole below. It's stunning.
The park is also home to some of the most famous landscape photos ever taken, isn't it?
It absolutely is. You really must visit the Snake River Overlook. That's the spot made globally famous by Ansel Adams's 1942 photograph, the one with the river winding through the valley below the peaks. And then there's Oxbow Bend. It's just renowned for offering that perfect, still reflection of Mount Moran in the meandering Snake River, usually best early morning. And for a blend of history and landscape, you should stop by the historic Molten Barns on Mormon Row. Classic Western scene.
Okay, and for those listeners who want to get out of the car and actually lace up their hiking boots, give us the hiking compendium. Maybe start with something relatively easy.
Sure, the Taggart Lake Loop is a perfect entry point. It's relatively easy, about 3.8 miles, and takes you through these beautiful aspen groves right to the base of the Tetons. Really rewarding. If you want something moderate with a bit more elevation gain, take the Jenny Lake boat shuttle across the lake and climb up to Inspiration Point. You get these stunning views looking back down into Jackson Hole.
And for the really ambitious hiker, the multi-day experience.
That would be the Paintbrush Canyon Cascade Canyon Loop. It's considered the gold standard for backpackers in the Tetons. It's strenuous, about 20 miles, but it showcases the absolute best of the high alpine terrain, including these spectacular views of the Cathedral Grove peaks.
Now, a practical note here. The crowds are, well, they're real. What advice do we have for navigating the sheer popularity of the park, especially during peak season?
Yeah, arriving early isn't just advice. It's pretty much mandatory if you want to secure parking at popular trailheads like Jenny Lake or Taggart. Think before sunrise sometimes. And this is really not optional. Local experts, park rangers, everyone stresses that carrying bear spray is considered a mandatory precaution, even on busy trails. You have to remember you are sharing this landscape with one of the most vital grizzly populations in the U.S. Be prepared.
Good advice. Now, if the crowds start to feel a bit overwhelming, where are the maybe secret stashes, the places to find a bit more Teton tranquility?
Okay, yeah. You could try Lay Lake. It's just north of String Lake, which gets very busy. Lay Lake offers peaceful hiking, and it's generally a quieter spot for paddling, like canoeing or kayaking. Another great option is Two Ocean Lake, over in the park's northeast section. It features a really peaceful loop trail, usually good wildflowers in season, and views of Mount Moran away from the main tourist rush.
And for the photographers, maybe chasing that classic reflection shot, but away from the really famous Ansel Adams view.
Yes, Schwabacher Landing. It's this idyllic little spot along the Snake River, highly recommended for sunrise or sunset photography, when the mountains reflect beautifully in the still water of the beaver ponds there.
Yeah.
Oh, and one more unique spot. If you're driving through the Moose area, pull off for the Chapel of the Transfiguration. It's this beautiful log structure, and behind the altar, there's this huge window that perfectly frames the Cathedral Group peaks. It's a truly unique and honestly quite moving vista. Looking ahead, though, all this immense beauty and, frankly, relatively easy access has created a major challenge for the park. The paradox of popularity is very real here. Annual recreation visits surpassed 3.8 million back in 2021. That was a 23% jump in just 6 years. It's a huge growth.
And that translates directly to parking lots being completely full before 8 a.m., traffic gridlocked on park roads, and the infrastructure just straining under the load. So the park is actively moving away from just promoting visitation, right, towards management.
Absolutely. The whole philosophy has shifted now towards what they call a visitor use management framework. It prioritizes responsible tourism over just attracting more numbers. And we're seeing some innovative community-led solutions pop up too. The local tourism board even started this campaign called Tag Responsibly, Keep Jackson Hole Wild, basically encouraging visitors not to geotag sensitive, maybe less known spots on social media to help protect them from being overrun.
Smart. And managing this strain obviously requires serious investment. We're seeing major infrastructure projects getting underway, often through public-private partnerships, which is interesting.
Yes, exactly. The Taggart Lake Trailhead, for instance, which is one of the busiest spots year-round, is getting a massive $14.6 million expansion. That starts in 2026. It'll add parking, permanent toilets, really address visitor impact directly. And the scenic Moose Wilson Road, which is kind of a rustic, narrow road popular for wildlife viewing, that's undergoing a multi-year renewal project. It's funded by the Great American Outdoors Act. The goal is to manage traffic and improve access a bit, while still keeping its rustic wilderness character intact. Balancing act.
Those sound like necessary, immediate fixes for managing the people. But when we zoom out and look at the existential long-term threats to the park's very nature, we have to talk about climate change. What does the data actually show is happening to this youthful range?
Yeah, it's pretty stark, and it's immediate. Since the mid-20th century, the park has lost at least 25% of its glacier cover. Gone. And perhaps even more alarming, average nighttime low temperatures have increased by about 3 to 4 degrees Fahrenheit over the last 110 years or so. Yeah. That might not sound like much, but it's significant.
A warming of that magnitude must have cascading effects across the entire ecosystem, doesn't it? It's not just about the ice.
No, it fundamentally changes the environment. You get less snowpack overall, and the snow melts earlier and faster in the spring. That means drier conditions later in the summer, and consequently a higher risk of wildfires. It also stresses the forests, making them more vulnerable to things like bark beetle infestations, which have hit parts of the West hard. And the warmer waters put serious stress on sensitive native fish, particularly including that cutthroat trout we talked about.
Wow. So we started this deep dive talking about the Teton Range's kind of dual identity. This landscape forged by billions of years of deep time geology, yet one that seems acutely vulnerable to modern, rapid change. The monumental uplift that created the Teton Range's recognizable youthful shape began 10 million years ago, and it's technically still ongoing. Tiny movements, but ongoing. However, the sources clearly show the park has already experienced a 3 to 4 degree increase in nighttime temperatures in just over a century. That's lightning fast in geological terms. So, considering that monumental scale of geologic time versus the incredibly accelerated pace of climate change, what does it even mean for a park's management to try and anticipate and mitigate changes that could fundamentally, maybe irreversibly, alter the very landscape that took billions of years to create? What stands out to you as the most critical challenge facing the Teton Range right now?